Here is another UFO bulletin. The Defense Department has just announced that the unidentified flying object has suddenly disappeared from our radar screens. They believe the object has either disintegrated in space, or it may be a spaceship from some other planet which has the ability to nullify our radar beams. Because of the ominous situation, the President has ordered the Strategic Air Command into action.
UFO Conspiracy Part 1. Origins. Since the dawn of civilization, man has speculated about visitors from strange worlds. In cultures and religions all throughout history, we see stories and anecdotes of beings visiting from the outside. Some of these figures are even said to have brought the knowledge and technology of the gods with them. With countless unexplained present-day events and a rich archive of bizarre video footage, mankind may be closer to the truth than ever before. As we take a look at the evidence, you might find there are still more questions than answers when it comes to UFO phenomenon. Legend has it that Prometheus brought the knowledge of the gods to mankind from the heavens. In the Vedic cosmology, Arjuna ascended to the flying palace of Vimana in the sky, while other texts speak of powerful flying machines known as the Raymana. In the Bible, Enoch took a similar voyage into the heavens in what is described as a chariot of fire. In the book of Ezekiel, we hear of a strange vision similar to accounts of reported alien abductions. He talks about another spinning, fiery aircraft called a Merkaba, illuminated by flashing lights and glowing metal. Ezekiel says that inside the craft were strange, human-like creatures. Countless stories like this are mirrored in texts all throughout the ancient world. Are these the same unidentified flying objects and aliens people have been experiencing in modern times? Or does this speak to some strange longing man has always had to travel the heavens and meet a species like their own? Taking a closer look at these early cultures, we see that they left us more clues. In the petroglyphs and hieroglyphs of Babylon and Egypt, we see the ominous symbol of the winged disc, which has always been associated with gods and kings. Did the pharaohs have more intimate knowledge of the flying discs? Or perhaps they may even have been ordained by some higher power? Is it a coincidence that the gods were always depicted with the wings? Or was their affinity for flight common knowledge all over early civilizations? Another strange practice was the formation of geoglyphs, like the Nazca lines. These rock formations and manipulated landscapes depict animals and other images that can only be properly viewed from high above. But why? Who were they trying to send these messages to? Some of the most compelling and controversial imagery comes out of the Temple of Seti in Upper Egypt. A small group of hieroglyph carvings at the site show what unmistakably appears to be a helicopter and a couple other advanced aircraft. Though experts have rationalized this to be a coincidence caused by the blending of multiple recarvings of the initial inscription due to erosion, there's an eerie feeling viewers get when they notice the uncanny resemblance. Why would so many large groups of people appear to have similar beliefs about the world above our own? Could they have made real contact with something else? Or is there some other explanation? The oldest written record describing sighting of an unidentified flying object allegedly took place in 1440 BC. There is debate among scholars as to the existence of a document known as the Tully Papyrus. Some say the scribes of the pharaoh Thutmose III supposedly described an event witnessed by the masses where fiery discs were encountered hovering in the skies. The original papyrus is no longer in existence, so it's hard to validate this report. Is this just an early myth, or the first UFO cover-up in recorded history? More credible reports of UFO phenomenon would begin to emerge out of the Roman Empire, starting around 66 AD. The highly reputable historians Josephus, Eusebius of Caesarea, and Tacitus report that while marching on Jerusalem, the Roman army was awestruck by the sight of what appears to be chariots and angels armed for battle filling up the entire sky overhead. Another one of the more notable reports from this period came from Roman army leader Plutarch in 74 AD. On the eve of battle with Mithridates VI of Pontus, the record states that all of a sudden the sky burst asunder and a huge flame-like body was seen to fall between the two armies. There are hundreds of reports of these experiences in the pre-scientific world. In the fated summer of 1947, at a small ranch just outside Roswell, New Mexico, some unknown object from the sky crashed into the earth violently, or at least that's what it appeared to be. With wide speculation and reports of a flying disc hovering over the incident, the United States Army Air Force decided to launch a full investigation. After quarantining the area and spending several days removing materials from the crash site with military trucks, the U.S. military stated that it was merely a conventional weather balloon. However, their actions surrounding the matter would seem to suggest something else entirely. The debris from Roswell is rumored to have been transported to Hangar 18 at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. This was the same location where they would launch an official, widespread investigation of UFO phenomenon as a whole starting that same year. The large-scale T2 intelligence investigations at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base started with Project Sign in 1949. The project was the first of its kind. Based on the hypothesis that extraterrestrials were behind UFO phenomenon, the research team set out to prove that aliens did indeed exist. Ultimately, the superior officers officially concluded that this theory was false. What's interesting is that the research would continue under a new title, Project Grudge. The goal of rebranding the project was to attain a more objective scientific analysis of the evidence, without assuming anything, but the process became anything but objective. At this time, there was much debate swirling around the Pentagon as to whether UFO phenomenon was even worth the resources needed for an investigation. There was serious skepticism, which aimed to turn Project Grudge into an exercise in debunking. The final 600-page report, meant to quell the public's interest in the subject, only served to spark further debate about a cover-up due to what appeared to be a blatant gaslighting of the public opinion. In March of 1952, the investigations would evolve yet again. The new iteration, Project Blue Book, would last all the way up until 1969. This time, the objectives would be strictly tactical. The military wanted to determine if UFOs were a threat to national security, and if the data they had could be put to use in the development of their existing technology. By the conclusion of Blue Book, the military had collected 12,618 reports of UFO sightings. When it was all said and done, the military legitimately suggested performing a psychological operation to debunk UFOs using mass media in order to influence public opinion. They justified this outrageous idea by saying UFO reports came in conflict with intelligence resources and that UFO groups were dangerous and could be used in subversive ways. If there was no strong evidence, why was the government so set on convincing the public not to look into it further? How dangerous could people believing in UFOs truly be to the status quo? If that isn't sinister enough, the military made it illegal for officers to discuss the investigations, with a penalty of prison time and a fine of at least $10,000. Senator Barry Goldwater once tried to gain access to a secret UFO area inside Wright-Patterson Air Force Base by asking General Curtis LeMay. LeMay told him, "Not only can't you get into it, but don't you ever mention it to me again." There were several sightings, all starting spontaneously around the same time. Before Roswell, a man named Kenneth Arnold saw a flying saucer near Mount Rainier, Washington, on June 24, 1947. But why did all the sightings start happening then? Were aliens finally ready to make contact? Though the number of sightings continued to climb dramatically each year, by 1953, the Robertson panel that came out of Project Blue Book had determined UFO reports were not correlated to a direct threat to national security. The government's official research into UFOs ended in 1969. But some of its research would carry over to the future. Joseph Allen Hynek was one of the men who worked in those initial investigations from the start. He started as a skeptic with a background in physics and astronomy, like many of his peers working on Grudge. After witnessing what can only be speculated to be life-changing evidence, Hynek committed his life's work to this study. Hynek was also the founder and first head of the Center for UFO Studies, CUFOS, founded in 1973. Today, he is considered the father of ufology. There was even more strange social phenomenon that resulted due to the rise of UFO sightings. One of the most interesting is people claiming to have achieved contact with extraterrestrials. These contactees come from many different backgrounds, and some even claim to have ongoing contact and recurring encounters with the outsiders. The first notable contactees were occultists Emanuel Swedenborg and Helena Blavatsky, and later her followers. They claimed to receive divine wisdom for entities outside our world. Many occult traditions have claimed knowledge comes from the other planets in our galaxy, as far back as one cares to look. As far as we know, all the evidence of contact so far is purely anecdotal. Modern contactee culture had the most momentum from the late 1940s to the late 1950s, near the beginning of the UFO boom. Even today, individuals claim to be in contact in relatively surprising numbers. The first celebrity contactee was probably George Van Tassel, who hosted the annual Giant Rock Interplanetary Spacecraft Convention in the Mojave Desert. George claims to have been taken aboard an aircraft and instructed in the energetic healing arts by aliens, prompting him to build a structure called Integratron, where some say they go for medicinal benefits, though there have been no scientific studies to back that up. The first alleged alien abduction claim to reach mass media was the Betty and Barney Hill abduction in 1961. The couple from New Hampshire were well-respected members of their community, so it came as a shock when they said they had been abducted by aliens on the way home from their Niagara Falls vacation. The beings they described were similar to the famous gray alien archetype. Though much other self-proclaimed alien abductions would come afterward, this is by far the most significant at starting the bizarre new trend. The next most popular events to start happening everywhere was the appearance of crop circles. Though crop circle records appear as far back as 1678, their association to UFOs didn't become popular until the later 1970s. Most of the modern reports of crop circles showed up in the English countryside. By the late 1980s, the media reported on crop circles near Hampshire and Wiltshire on a regular basis. In 1991, two men named Bauer and Chorley publicly claimed that they were responsible for many of the circles. After this, they started appearing everywhere in the world. The ultimate question is, could someone fake a UFO convincingly back in the late 40s, 50s, and 60s? And if so, how? The answer might be as strange as the question. Right around the time of World War II, Nazi Germany began research into advanced propulsion technology like rocketry, circular winged aircraft, and the unconventional engine research of Victor Schauberger's. They were scrambling to get a technological advantage over the Allied forces to win the war. At the end of the war, the Allies found that Germans had been developing many projects, including profound aircraft and guided missiles designs, unlike anything they were aware of. The majority were in the early phases, but they were the closest thing to the otherworldly UFOs, nicknamed Foo Fighters, that were encountered by Allied pilots in the South Pacific. The Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency launched a secret program called Operation Paperclip between 1945 and 1959. The program involved moving 1,600 German scientists and engineers like Werner von Braun from Germany to America to work in positions for the U.S. government. America was now caught up in their own arms race with the Soviets due to the Cold War, and more importantly, the space race. Starting near the end of 1945, 3 groups of rocket scientists were transported into the United States via Fort Bliss, Texas, and at White Sands Proving Grounds, New Mexico, which puts them within shooting distance of Roswell. 86 of the newly imported engineers were sent to Wright-Patterson, where the United States was said to have secret Luftwaffe aircraft technology captured during a directive called Operation Lusty. When you put all these little pieces together, the narrative becomes far more interesting than mere weather balloons and anecdotes about flashing lights in the sky. Part 2. Mythology. According to all the existing data, about 43% of all reported alien encounters in the United States describe gray aliens. Is our world really being visited by little bulbous gray people, or is this all due to the power of suggestion and repetition? The true birthplace of the gray legend as the archetypical alien creature is hard to lock down. Legendary science fiction author H.G. Wells penned an interesting article in 1893 about the idea that humans morphed into a civilization of gray people 1 meter tall, with abnormally large heads and big black oval eyes. That's not a coincidence, but what's really going on behind it all, we may never know for sure. Remember Barney and Betty Hill? They also claim to have been abducted by grays. Most modern depictions of aliens in artwork and merchandise are the same gray figure with slight alterations. So why are we being inundated with this repeated image of one type of extraterrestrial? Did H.G. Wells know something we don't? It's hard to say for sure, since the reports are so widespread and there appears to be no concrete evidence either way. One of the most notable cases investigated under Project Blue Book was the Lubbock Lights of 1951. The strange flying V formation of lights over Texas was the first widely publicized sighting in America's history. 3 Texas Tech professors spotted the lights on the night of August 25th and put out the initial reports of the event. What was believed to be these same lights were captured in a photograph by Texas Tech freshman 5 nights later, who spotted them from his bedroom window. Though the Texas professors said they perceived the lights in a U formation, unlike the photo, the Air Force's investigation concocted a weird hypothesis of the lights being birds called plovers that were illuminated due to their flight over sodium vapor streetlights. Many people completely disagreed with this conclusion, but when confronted, the Air Force declined to comment further. Were they hiding inside knowledge about these lights? Or did they simply not want to put out the appearance that their investigation methods left them with no idea about the true nature of this event? The recent resurgence in UFO activity started in Belgium. Starting around the end of November in 1989, this 4-month period was full of sightings. But the strange thing is there were no pictures or videos of the aircraft at the time. Many of these reports were similar, describing flat triangular objects which were illuminated by lights on the bottom. The aircraft were seen flying at low altitude, and on March 30th, 1990, the Belgian Air Force picked something up on the radar. The F-16 pilots sent in pursuit never saw these targets, but that night, over 143 reported sightings came in, igniting a new era of UFO sightings over the next decade. Back in America, more lights would be seen in the southwestern sky, but this time it was seen by thousands of people in Arizona and Nevada on the night of March 13, 1997. Some people saw a flying V formation of lights, just like in Lubbock, Texas. Others saw a large group of seemingly stationary orbs of light. These 2 groups of lights were seen for almost 2 whole hours by many observers. There is tons of video and photographic evidence of the event, and a similar repeated phenomenon would happen in 2007. Both times, the military blamed the phenomenon on spilled flares from their own aircraft in the area. The evidence of this event is by far the most comprehensive and convincing in the modern era. Maybe we are closer to contact than we think. Or maybe someone is getting really good at faking it. Part 3. Legacy. National UFO Reporting Center has been taking UFO reports since 1974. They have taken over 150,000 reports of UFOs since then. Sightings continue all over the world to this day. The most popular UFO investigation groups still currently operating are the Mutual UFO Network, or MUFON, which started their annual conference in 1969 and remains the largest conference in the world. The Center for UFO Studies, founded by J. Allen Hynek in 1973, is still conducting research as well. Reported UFO sightings and interest groups have had a massive fall-off since their recent peak back in 2014, mostly due to the rise in debunking efforts in recent years. Though there are still hundreds of independent groups and researchers working in the field, searching for the answers they feel they never got from official reports. When asked about their personal experiences, several NASA astronauts are said to have independently admitted experiencing UFO phenomenon, including Leland Melvin, Gordon Cooper, and Buzz Aldrin. NASA officially denies any direct knowledge of UFO-related phenomenon in relation to their space missions up to this point. What is strange is that they do say we should be putting more resources into the search for aliens, though. But why? Do they know something we don't? After the space race, the budget for NASA dropped off pretty dramatically. There's been a recent push to complete a mission to Mars and the formation of a space force to protect government interests in space. But is there really a threat out there somewhere? Either way, these budget boosts have kept NASA going in recent years. Though space exploration and the quest to find alien life continues to be a theme in government talks, their true intentions for this remain mysterious to the public as of right now. Has our world really been visited by aliens? Do they live among us in secret? Or is it all an elaborate hoax used for a much more sinister purpose? Decide for yourself. This is only the official story.